On a freezing winter night in Chicago, where the wind cuts through the city like glass, a billionaire CEO and his little daughter cross paths with a homeless mother fighting to keep her baby alive. What begins as a single act of kindness soon becomes a life-changing journey, one that challenges privilege, redefines compassion, and reminds us that even in the coldest nights, humanity still burns bright. This is not just a story about wealth or charity. It's about empathy, the courage to stop, and the childlike heart that sees what adults often overlook. Like, share, and subscribe to spread stories that restore faith in humanity. The cold air bit through Michael's coat as he helped the woman up. She was trembling so badly that he could feel the shivers through her thin jacket. The baby's soft whimper was barely audible beneath the howling wind. The driver hurried to open the door wider, and Lily scooted aside, making space on the warm leather seat. As soon as the woman stepped in, steam rose from her wet clothes, and her eyes darted around the luxury car in disbelief. "It's okay," Lily whispered again, offering her a small smile. "You're safe now." The woman nodded weakly, clutching her baby tighter as tears streaked her cold cheeks. Michael sat across from her, studying the way she held that fragile bundle, protective yet exhausted. He had seen people in need before, but from behind a podium or through a screen filled with numbers and reports. This was different. This was real. "What's your name?" he asked softly. Her voice cracked as she replied, "Sarah." The baby stirred slightly, a small cough escaping its lips. "He's burning up," she added, panic rising in her tone. Without hesitation, Michael pulled off his scarf and gently placed it over the baby. "We're taking you to a hospital," he assured her. "Just hold on a little longer." The driver nodded and pressed harder on the accelerator. Lily leaned closer, her eyes fixed on the baby. "Is she going to be okay?" she whispered. Sarah's lips quivered as she answered, "I hope so." The child's innocence, her empathy, it touched Sarah more than she could express. She had spent weeks being invisible to the world, yet here was a little girl looking at her like she mattered. The warmth of that moment melted something inside her that the cold hadn't yet taken. Michael, watching the two, felt an unfamiliar weight in his chest. He had spent years chasing success, yet in that moment, all he wanted was to see this mother and her child safe. As they sped through the nearly empty streets, Michael couldn't help but notice how quiet the city felt. The same streets that had hosted the gala an hour ago, filled with laughter, champagne, and polished speeches about charity, were now hauntingly silent. He realized the irony of it all. Just blocks away from where millions were pledged to fight homelessness, a woman and her baby were freezing to death. The thought struck him deeply. He had been part of that system. He was that system, and now, confronted by this raw suffering, he felt a kind of shame he hadn't known before. Sometimes, one small act of kindness can change more than a life. It can change a heart. If this story touched you, don't just scroll away. Share it, spread the message, and remind the world that humanity still exists. I've subscribed for more powerful true-life stories that warm the soul. They arrived at the hospital within minutes. The emergency lights reflected off the car's glossy surface as nurses rushed to open the doors. "We need a stretcher," one shouted, seeing the limp baby in Sarah's arms. Michael gently helped her out, steadying her as her knees buckled from weakness. "You're going to be all right," he said, his voice steady but his heart pounding. Lily clung to his arm, watching as the doctors took the baby from Sarah and hurried through the double doors. Sarah's cries echoed faintly in the sterile air. Michael looked down at Lily, whose face was pale with worry. "Daddy," she whispered, "will they make it?" He didn't answer right away. For once, he didn't know. The waiting room was nearly empty. The hum of fluorescent lights filled the silence as Sarah sat wrapped in a hospital blanket, her eyes red from tears. Michael handed her a cup of hot tea. "Thank you," she said softly, her hands trembling as she took it. "You didn't have to stop." "No one ever does?" He looked at her, unsure how to respond. He thought about all the times he'd driven past people like her, thinking someone else would help, that his donations were enough. But now, sitting across from her, he knew that writing checks was easy. What was hard was showing up. being there. Lily fell asleep against his shoulder, her small hand still holding his. He brushed her hair gently, a wave of pride washing over him. It had been her voice, her compassion, that had made him stop. "Daddy, she's freezing," she had said. 4 simple words that changed everything. Michael realized that tonight wasn't about charity or image, it was about humanity. It wasn't his wealth that made a difference, but his choice to act. And it was his daughter who reminded him of that truth. Hours passed before the doctor finally returned. Michael stood immediately, his heart pounding. "She's stable," the doctor said, offering a tired smile. "The baby had severe hypothermia, but we've managed to stabilize her temperature. She's a fighter." Sarah covered her face with her hands and sobbed. Michael exhaled deeply, relief flooding through him. He looked down at Lily, now stirring awake. "Daddy?" she murmured. "They're okay," he whispered, smiling faintly. She smiled back, sleepy but content. As Sarah was led to see her baby, Michael watched quietly. The hospital's bright lights glinted off the windows, illuminating his reflection. A man who had everything but had nearly forgotten what truly mattered. He turned to Lily and said softly, "You did a good thing tonight." She yawned, leaning her head on his arm. "We just helped someone, Daddy." He nodded slowly, realizing how profound those words were. Sometimes it took a child's pure heart to remind an adult of compassion long buried under success. And in that cold Chicago night, Michael felt something warm awaken within him, a sense of purpose far deeper than wealth or status. Michael stood in the cold hospital hallway, his polished shoes echoing faintly against the tile floor. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly, but inside his chest his heart pounded louder than ever before. He had spent his life solving complex business problems, leading teams and navigating billion-dollar negotiations. Yet now he stood helpless, watching strangers in white coats fight for the life of a baby he didn't even know. The irony didn't escape him. For all his wealth and success, here he was, completely powerless in the face of something raw and human. Lily, still clutching his hand, looked up at him with teary eyes. He knelt beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. "She'll be okay," he whispered, though he wasn't sure if he was trying to reassure her or himself. Hours crawled by. The sterile smell of antiseptic hung in the air. Every time a nurse walked by, Michael's pulse quickened, hoping for news. Finally, a doctor approached, exhaustion written across his face, but with a small smile tugging at his lips. "The baby's stable now," he said, his tone soft but steady. "You got them here just in time. A few more minutes and it might have been too late." Michael's shoulders sagged as he exhaled, feeling a weight lift he didn't know he carried. Lily squeezed his hand tightly and asked, "Daddy, we saved them, right?" He smiled faintly. "Yes, sweetheart." "You did." The next morning, sunlight filtered through the hospital blinds as Michael walked into the woman's room. She looked frail but alert, her eyes filled with cautious gratitude. "I'm Sarah," she murmured. "Sarah Miller." Her voice trembled as she tried to thank him. "You didn't have to stop. Most people wouldn't have." Michael looked at her, realizing the truth in that simple sentence. He had passed countless faces in need before, invisible people, unseen lives. He had always told himself his donations, his foundations, his charity galas were enough. But now, seeing Sarah and her baby lying there, he knew money had never been the true measure of generosity. "You reminded me," he said softly, "that people need more than money. They need compassion." As days passed, Michael made sure Sarah and her baby were cared for. He arranged for a temporary apartment, helped her restore her nursing license, and connected her to opportunities she'd once lost. Yet what surprised him most was how much Sarah wanted to give back. She didn't want sympathy. She wanted to rebuild. In meetings with his foundation, she spoke from experience, crafting programs that actually reached struggling families, not just numbers on a spreadsheet. Her insight changed everything. Lily adored Sarah and her baby, visiting them whenever she could. One snowy morning, a few weeks later, they met at the park. Children's laughter mixed with the soft hum of winter wind. Lily ran to Sarah, eyes bright with excitement. "Mom says you're working with Daddy now," she shouted gleefully. Sarah smiled, holding her baby close. I guess I am, she said with a warm laugh. The sight made Michael pause. He stood a few feet away, his breath misting in the cold air, watching them. His daughter, full of innocence, and a woman who had once been lost but now had hope. For the first time in years, Michael didn't think about stock prices, meetings, or market trends. His mind drifted back to that night. The red light, the snow, and Lily's small voice saying, "Daddy, she's freezing." It had been such a simple moment, yet it changed everything. He realized how close he had been to driving past, to missing the chance to help. How many others had done the same? The thought sent a chill deeper than the winter air. Sometimes, he realized, it took a child's heart to teach an adult what kindness truly meant. As snowflakes began to fall, Lily twirled, laughing as Sarah smiled nearby. The world seemed softer somehow, lighter. Michael watched them, his heart calm in a way it hadn't been for years. He had built skyscrapers, networks, and fortunes, but nothing compared to the quiet warmth of that moment. The reminder that humanity still breathed in the small, selfless choices people make when no one's watching. He looked at his daughter. Her cheeks flushed pink from the cold, and whispered, "You saved more than just them that night, Lily. You saved me."